this episode of the 2024 CounciLIVE series, It Starts with High School, the CDA CTE program, and Michigan's Model Initiative. My name is Kait Dawson, and I am the Digital Marketing Manager for the Council for Professional Recognition. On today's episode, we will be speaking with a panel about the CDA CTE program and the success Michigan has found in implementing their initiative, Future Proud Michigan Educator launch. First, the Council's Partner Relationship Manager, Sandy Kowalchek, will share an overview of the CDA CTE program, including how it started and some of the benefits it provides to the ECE community. Then, we will speak with the Professional Development Specialist for Michigan's Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement, and Potential, Robin Zeiter, on the success of their initiative, Future Proud Michigan Educator launch. To conclude, the Office of Career and Technical Education Consultant Education and Training for Michigan's Department of Education, Candace Vinson, will discuss her experience as a CTE consultant and how Michigan is implementing CDA CTE programs statewide. To get started, we welcome the Council's Partner Relationships Manager, Sandy Kowalchek. Sandy has over 20 years of experience in management positions in both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. She earned her BA from American University School of International Service in Washington, D.C., and her Master of Science from the London School of Economics and Political Science in the UK. In her current position, she is serving the ECE field with a focus on career and technical education, workforce development, and council partnerships with states and associations. Welcome, Sandy.
Thanks, Kait. It's great to be here today.
To get started, can you please give our viewers an overview of the CDA CTE program? How did it get started, and what's the importance of the program?
Thanks, Kait. I'd love to tell everyone a little bit more about the program. I'd also like to start with what the CDA is for those of you who don't know about it. The Child Development Associate, or the CDA, is the most widely recognized credential in early childhood education. It's a key stepping stone on the path to career advancement in early childhood education. And guided by the belief that all students should be college or career ready, in 2011, the Council began allowing high school students enrolled in career and technical education programs, or CTE, to earn the CDA credential. And the CDA credential in high school jumpstarts successful careers and channels faculty expertise as well. If you are a student interested in working in early childhood education, earning a CDA can initiate a career in the field by the time you leave high school and also help you earn college credit toward your AA or bachelor degree. And also it helps with career pathways. Students getting the CDA usually follow paths that include working at a center and either as an assistant teacher or director. And some move on, as I mentioned a few moments ago, to get either an AA or BA degree in early childhood education. But interestingly, we've recently found that many students are now using the CDA as added value, a stepping stone to further their education. For instance, we're seeing many students who are looking to be pediatricians or child psychologists and add their CDA to their resume as an added value in the fierce competition when applying to various schools. And in particular, the social and behavioral aspects of our CDA subject area content greatly interest them as they further their careers.
Thanks for that wonderful overview, Sandy. With that in mind, what are some of the key benefits of the CDA CTE program for students, schools, and the broader community?
I'll start with benefits to students. Students graduate high school job ready with the nationally recognized CDA credential. It can also jumpstart higher ed with core knowledge of child development. And they'll also gain knowledge, skills, and confidence working with young children. They'll gain valuable skills and competencies that early childhood employers want. And they can also potentially earn college credit while still in high school. And benefits for faculty can include just as simple as empowering students with explicit, measurable, and transferable learning competencies recognized in all 50 states in the US military. And they prepare students for success in college and career opportunities, especially to help further their career pathways and as a mentor. And lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about benefits to states. As the CDA, the CDA program can integrate with state pre-designed courses and alignment, and most CDA requirements are already covered in some state-approved courses. There's opportunities for customized CDA ECE courses to support further rollout in states. And some states offer dedicated funding for CTE ECE programs. And we work with a lot of those states as well. Toward the end of this conversation, we'll be giving some additional emails and so forth if anybody's interested in further conversations in that way. And lastly, just benefiting states as well as candidates. It supports career pathways. And it can include education offered concurrently or in the same cycle as workforce preparation and training. And it enables a CTE program to offer students a secondary school diploma and at least one industry-based credential in ECE, and helps individuals enter or advance within specific CTE occupation or occupational clusters.
Wow, Sandy, this sounds like a really important, beneficial program that gives young people a lot of opportunities for professional development. Are there currently states who are implementing the CDA CTE program?
Yes, Kate, there are lots of states that are implementing the CDA in high school via CTE programs. Some of those include the District of Columbia, Georgia, Texas, Virginia, Florida, Delaware starting it. Many states are in the midst of also developing programs and cohorts with this initiative, which we're very excited about. And a great example of a state model that's working really well is Michigan. And I'm happy to say that we have representatives from Michigan here today to talk to you about their successful program.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Sandy. We look forward to speaking with you again a little bit later. Now I'd like to welcome Robin Zeiter. Robin has extensive experience with workforce and career pathway initiatives. Currently, she serves as the Professional Development Specialist in the Office of Early Childhood Education in the Michigan Department of Lifelong Education Advancement and Potential. She is also the Program Manager for Michigan's Workforce Registry, Michigan Registry. Robin is part of a statewide leadership team focused on the Future Proud Michigan Educator Launch Initiative, which she will be sharing about today. Welcome, Robin.
Thanks, Kate. It's great to be here. I'm excited to spend some time with you today.
Awesome, Robin. I'm so happy to have you here as well. Can you explain what the Future Proud Michigan Educator Launch Initiative is and its goals for supporting students in Michigan?
Absolutely. So Future Proud Michigan Educator Launch is an exciting initiative that's designed to expand the much needed pipeline of credentialed educators through career pathways that begin in high school. It supports students with earning industry recognized credentials while in high school to hopefully support a future career in education. High school students pursuing a career in early childhood education work towards earning the nationally recognized CDA credential as part of their career in technical education program. And the hope is that participating in this initiative will spark student interest in education-related careers, support students with earning college credits towards a higher education degree, and provide employment upon graduation and completion of the credential.
This sounds like an excellent opportunity for young people looking to get into the ECE field. What was the process like for creating the initiative, and what were some key factors in its development?
So we started this initiative roughly 4 years ago, and probably the biggest component that has helped us launch a successful initiative is having technical assistance support. So we had Region 8 Comprehensive Center expertise, and they really have served us in so many ways as a state department and now 2 state departments. They certainly brought expertise in terms of early childhood expertise. They helped with design and development. They certainly have helped with communication materials. They facilitated an advisory group and listening sessions with teachers and high school students, which was invaluable to collect and have someone sort of manage that information and support us. Also, key factor, State Department buy-in. So when we started this work, we were part of both Candace's unit, who you'll hear from a little bit later, and my office were part of the Michigan Department of Education. And midway through this last year, the Early Childhood Education Department moved to a new department, which is the Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement, and Potential. And not only did we have leadership commitment at MDE, or the Department of Ed, we also have that same commitment at MyLead. We also had cross-office collaboration. Again, you'll hear from Candace a little bit later, and she is a career and technical education consultant, among other things as well. But our offices and our leadership supported us working on this very important initiative. We also had Teacher Cert as part of our group, strategic planning, and probably 4 other offices that were under MDE, all coming together to work together. Another big key factor in this work and in the success of this work is that at the time that we launched this, early childhood really took front stage in our teacher certification process or system. So we were going through a new certification process. We used to have certification that was elementary focused and secondary focused. And in our new certification system, we've gone to a banding for teacher certification, and birth to kindergarten was added to that, as well as a pre-K3 certification. So that young child, that early childhood piece was really recognized and very ripe to look at CDA as kind of that first step for these high school students to earn a meaningful credential. I'd also say another key factor is that the CDA is embedded in our entire early childhood system. So it's part of our career pathway. It is part of our Great Start to Quality, quality recognition and improvement system. It is part of the Great Start Readiness Program, which is our state-funded pre-K. It also is part of licensing. So we have really immersed the CDA in our system, which was definitely why launch being built on the credential being the CDA for high school students pursuing early childhood made perfect sense. I mentioned a little bit about advisory group and listening sessions. Hearing from those, being those students, teachers, and the field about what was important to them, including higher ed, really critical to this work. Another piece that I think that is really key is that we have embedded or included high school students and their teachers in our workforce registry. So our registry is called My Registry, and students have a place. We know that students, we know that people in our field, have different entrances and exits and different time frames for how quickly they will complete a particular credential or degree, and to have an online portfolio of what they have accomplished should they not complete the CDA immediately in high school. This has been really beneficial, in addition to some of the data that we'll be able to speak to around these students, as well as a training approval and a trainer approval system that provides additional content for students to access. Another key piece, universal pre-K. Our state is pursuing and moving towards universal pre-K for all. We have a really strong state-funded pre-K program now, and we're going to need many, many, many early childhood educators, particularly at that associate teacher level, which is where a CDA is the requirement, the entry-level requirement for that position. And then 2 more things I'll just say around key factors about this particular success or building of this launch. Michigan and AUIC, so our local association for the education of young children, has been an incredible partner. They've embraced this initiative. They've included high school students as part of the profession. They've had a track for students at their annual conference. They've funded teachers and high school students coming to that conference. They also had and encouraged and supported students with presenting at the conference. Again, really sort of enveloping them and looking at these high school students as our future. So Michigan AUIC, definitely something that has been a partnership that has really supported this work. Also, our partnership with the council. We very much so value and utilize and enjoy having access to the high school handbook. to the webinars that have supported this work along the way, to the data that has been shared with us. We also recognize, the importance of PD specialists and supporting these CDA candidates with completing the CDA. So PD specialist recruitment and support has been invaluable. So lots of things and lots of people that have helped to make this really exciting pipeline for high school students a success. So thanks for asking about it.
Of course. Well, it sounds like you all had a lot of wonderful support to get this initiative up and running. And to have such a spotlight on the benefits of ECE, that's also an important component to creating a successful program. How is the Future Proud Michigan Educator Launch Initiative impacting high school students in Michigan, particularly those pursuing a future career in education?
So I think, this is probably a shorter answer, but students are excited about education and about young children. And I think that, coming off COVID and, thinking about our educators, to have excitement and passion about young children and becoming an early childhood educator is, such a benefit, right? And we know that, that kind of excitement feeds peers. It, helps parents understand the importance. And we all want to work in fields where we feel that excitement and that passion. So certainly Launch has created a great deal of excitement around early childhood. As I said, things are really ripe in our state in terms of workforce and immediate employment for these credentialed high school students, with lots of supports to help them pursue additional higher ed if they want while they're working. So again, lots of excitement. And then these students with this credential, they're well poised to serve in an early childhood educator role immediately. Again, they can pursue that additional higher education, and they can access teach funding in our state, which really allows for completing a degree with very little out of pocket expense. And I also think about, some of these students may not go into early childhood education in an educator role. They might, again, become speech therapists, or they might, become pediatricians, and the experiences that they've had with work-based learning, with interacting with children, with observing and assessment and observation. As I said, the excitement and the skill set that these high school students leave high school with, coupled and based on having gone through the process of getting this credential, invaluable.
What an awesome answer, Robin. What advice would you give to other states looking to implement a similar initiative, and how can they start the process?
So in terms of advice, I would say collaboration is critical. We absolutely could not have done this if we did not have leadership support and multiple offices tackling this. So that would be the first sort of piece of advice. The second, and I would bold this, support for CTE teachers. For some CTE teachers, the CDA is a new road to travel. And so support for them every step of the way really matters. I'll say also that the registry piece and having another system where they had responsibilities was a piece that took, there was a learning curve. And so knowing that teachers have lots and lots and lots of things on their plate, and being as supportive and also explaining the benefit of some of the things that we're asking them to do. So certainly that would be critical support for those teachers. I mentioned earlier that we did listening sessions. We had teachers on our advisory committee. We also participated in their professional organization conference, so that again, we could be immersed in kind of what made them tick, what things were, challenges or opportunities or successes, so that it could better inform this work along the way. I think of the Workforce Registry Connection as being a success, or something that I would strongly encourage states with registries to utilize them in this way. And then lastly, I would just say those partnerships, that partnership with Michigan AUIC, who hosts things like CDA boot camps and has a really strong CDA presence and support system for candidates and PD specialists, excuse me. And then also the council partnership. You know, we're doing this work together, and we are equally as excited about seeing students become early childhood educators, and doing that with that first step CDA, where they have competency and portfolios and work-based learning experiences and content area that really drives and creates a professional that can do great things in this field.
What good advice, especially when it comes to offering sufficient support for our educators who are facilitating the CDA CTE programs. We've loved having you today, Robin. It's been so great to have this conversation. You've offered so much to our viewers. Is there anything else you would like to share before you go today?
Just this is probably one of the most rewarding things that I work on, in terms of filling my personal bucket and having an opportunity to see educators that are educating the high school students and interacting with them, and then just seeing that passion and excitement in the students that are working towards this credential. So I think we all need that as professionals, and for me, this is one of my favorite initiatives that I work on.
Well, we're so glad that you're working on that initiative, and we really appreciate the time that you've spent here with us at CounciLIVE. Thank you so much for offering your insights and sharing a little bit about the initiative so that people know what they can do in their own states.
So it's been a pleasure. I'm so glad that we have this time together, and I look forward to our continued work in this exciting area.
I'd like to now welcome our final panelist, Candace Vinson. Candace is a career and technical education consultant from the Michigan Department of Education. She has over 17 years of teaching experience, including 11 in the Education and Training Career Cluster. She helped form the Michigan Educational Career Association and has done extensive work with Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America and Educators Rising. Candace is also part of a statewide leadership team focused on the future Proud Michigan Educator launch and has been instrumental in supporting CTE teachers and their students with competency alignment and credential achievement. Welcome, Candace.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's really an honor to be able to present with my colleagues here. Thank you.
To get started, can you share your experience as a CTE consultant and how it has shaped your perspective on the CDA CTE program?
So it's been an interesting path to getting to this point. I was hired in 2019. I had taught in this area for about 17 years. So 17 years of teaching CTE in the education and training cluster. And when I was a teacher, I knew about the CDA, but I did not comprehend the importance of the CDA. I just knew if students wanted to go into early ed, they needed to have one of those. I didn't know the benefit, and I don't think I appreciated it. I didn't come from early childhood education. I came from high school education. So I didn't have that confidence. So Robin mentioned, some of our teachers were not feeling confident with the CDA. I was one of those teachers. I knew that we were sitting on a crisis, right on the edge of a crisis in our state in terms of workforce development. But I also felt really hard in my gut that pushing more people into the field is not the answer. So in 2019, before COVID hit, I had the opportunity to connect with Robin, who is a fierce advocate for the CDA. But I also traveled to Anaheim for the ACTE Vision Conference. And I met Dr. Bisa Batten-Lewis, Dr. Bisa, who presented exactly how you can do this in a classroom. And I just remember sitting in that presentation, looking up to Dr. Bisa saying, we can do this in Michigan. Now I understand. I have a more understanding, I guess. And so my job as a consultant is really to listen to the industry experts, brainstorm how to break down barriers. At the same time that I was, getting to know the CDA a little bit better, Our governor put in place a goal of increasing the number of working age adults with a skilled certificate or college degree to 60% by the year 2030. So that's a huge initiative in my office, closing the skill gap, increasing opportunities. So between my knowledge of growing of the CDA over these years, and then knowing how that supports our workforce initiatives, I think that's really been pivotal in helping my teachers. It was just for me sitting back, learning and listening to the industry experts.
Well, many of us are familiar with Dr. Biza and her love for the CDA CTE program. It sounds like it's been a wonderful journey discovering the program and helping your educators. As a part of the statewide leadership team for the future Proud Michigan Educator launch, can you share a little bit about your role and how you support the CTE educators and students?
Sure. So I'm the subject matter expert in this. I've been in the classroom and now I support the teachers who are in the classroom. So I've had those boots on the ground. The CDA for us is an entry level credential that can then lead to a 2 or 4 year degree. My role is to offer support to teachers, technical assistance, breaking down barriers. So sometimes those barriers are administrative barriers or cost barriers. So I become almost like a middleman to help teachers navigate problems. Sometimes my role is to educate the teachers. I always say I was the biggest naysayer actually of the CDA when I was in the classroom, because I didn't understand it. So I like to say young and dumb. But now that I know better, it's my role to pull aside those teachers who are new in their roles to say, well, wait a second. I know that the CDA was not a part of your teaching history, but here's how the CDA helps students move into occupational therapy or into a position that maybe they'll only hold for a few years and then they'll bounce to something else. I become the advocate for my teachers, my programs, my students. I actually was able to present to some groups of students and hold some listening sessions to hear their thoughts on the CDA and their thoughts on their CTE program. What were their challenges and successes and how could I better support them? And then another big part of my role is growing programs. And I can't grow programs in areas of the state that I'm not in. So Michigan is very diverse in terms of people, but it's also diverse in simply the mass that we encompass as a state. I'm from the Detroit area, so I am very familiar with my neighborhood, but I'm not overly familiar with the Upper Peninsula. When this program started, we didn't have any programs actually in the entire top half of the Lower Peninsula and then into the Upper Peninsula. But what it took to put programs there was for someone to go in and say, you need this in your building. We often talk about having more teachers of color. Well, we can't do that if this program isn't offered in buildings where there's students of color. So sometimes I walk into a building for something completely unrelated to this project, but when I notice that they don't have this program, my question is why? Why don't you have this? And then my question or my answer is to help them build it. So I'm very much a builder and a facilitator, there to support programs and not just to support them getting started, but to support them growing, evolving, and being successful. And also, I'll add one more thing. Part of this project is workforce development, and part of this project is education. Workforce development and the field of education, they do not speak the same language. So you often have to have someone who can translate workforce development terms to terms that are used in a high school. And so that's a big part of my role too, is knowing both sides of that. Also going back to workforce development and saying, hey, you call this an apprenticeship, but in the education world, we call it a clinical experience. And making sure that we're translating so everyone in the group or every stakeholder in the group knows what the other side is talking about or what another group is talking about.
Wow, Candace. I mean, it's a big role to be an advocate, especially when it comes to implementing new programs in diverse new places. It sounds like your leadership is providing crucial support for educators and their students. So thank you for that. What motivated the formation of the Michigan Educational Career Association, and how does it support CTE teachers and students?
The Michigan Educational Careers Association actually evolved from a group in the early 2000s called Secondary Educators of Early Childhood. In that group, back in the 2000s, it was relatively small, 20 to 30 members, I think, at our max. So when I was a teacher, when I first started, the teacher before me said, and she wrote it on Post-it notes in several places, so I knew it was important, but she wrote, make sure you join SEEC, SEEC, that they're your lifeline. And it's true. So CTE teachers, they really sit on an island of isolation. They are often the only CTE teacher in a building, or they're one of a small group of teachers that don't have much in common. In my building, it was me, the mechanical drafting teacher, who is lovely. She's a very good friend, and the automotive instructor. But you can see where, when I was teaching early childhood education, that one of these things didn't quite belong. And so we would have professional development opportunities in our building that were related to building goals, but kind of didn't relate to what we were doing in the classroom. And so you feel very lonely. You don't have anyone to talk to, just to bounce even the smallest of ideas off of. So back in about 2010, 2012, as teachers in that group, we said, you know what, we probably have to rebrand. We're not just teaching early childhood, we're teaching more of a P20 type focus. So let's rebrand so that all teachers feel included. Even those who are, if you're turning your high school students into middle school teachers, we still want you to be here, safety in numbers. But let's put on our own professional development for our own teachers, teacher-led. There was no outside organization supporting us at the time. And we rewrote bylaws, found a place to host conferences. And it was very much teachers, boots on the ground, saying, okay, there's 5 of us here. Let's plan for this conference and let's make it really good so that people keep coming back. And the women that took over this group, we now have men in it too, which is important. They've grown it huge, close to, if not over 100 members. I don't have this year's final numbers, but that group was able to then collaborate with the Michigan Association of Education for Young Children, and with the Michigan After School Partnership, and with the vast majority of our educational preparation providers in our state, to produce an extremely high quality conference. I actually run an opposing conference for all CTE teachers in our state. And I tell my teachers, if you can only go to one thing, you go to the Mecca conference. Don't come to my conference. It won't be as good as sitting at a table with people who teach what you teach, just so you feel normal when you have something that's an issue in your classroom, that 3 other people at the table are going to say, oh yeah, I don't know how to do that either. Or you have one person who says, I got your solution. It's very simple. So having those types of organizations for CTE teachers helps us retain CTE teachers. And retainment, even here, where we're looking at retaining teacher ed teachers, that's really important in our field. So to have this amazing organization there, they make my job easy. It's amazing to have. I thank them every day.
I love that it's teacher-led and offers opportunities to collaborate together. Community is so important in this field. As you said, it fosters retention, collaboration, and overall growth. Lightly switching gears, you and Robin were featured in the Best Practices Clearinghouse focus on the field for the Future Proud Michigan Educator Launch Program. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and some of the successes in your program that led to your inclusion in this project?
Sure. So that was really exciting. We were notified back in November that the U.S. Department of Education had selected our initiative to feature in a best practices video. We went to 3 different locations, Detroit, Melvindale, which is near Detroit, a little bit more suburban, and then out to Sanilac, which is a much more rural community, to interview students and teachers to share some video of students in action. So that was really exciting to be acknowledged that what we're doing is good work. In my gut, I always knew that this program worked. When I was teaching, I would scream it, this works. I swear this works. I know how many of my former students are working in this building right now. But now we have data and we have evidence that really supports that. It's a game changer for students in communities where becoming a teacher may not have been an option before. Just having the training for a CDA may have been too far of a reach for many of our communities. One of our big successes that we see when I look at our demographics of CTE students, and we compare it to all students, and then we also have the ability to compare to all teachers in our state. We have an exact match of Latinx students to Latinx students. We don't have that in our teacher workforce in our state. So our CTE program right now is reaching more students in those communities. We actually have one program that is offered entirely in Spanish. The teacher's first language is Spanish, the students, the community's first language is all Spanish. And those students are able to test completely in Spanish as well. That's an absolute game changer for workforce in that particular community. Not to mention, it's just empowering. So students get to feel success, and the students that they work with feel success. So you can't tell me that one day down the line, if we do research to show this program's impact on maybe third grade reading skills, that programs or schools that have this program aren't going to show just a little bit more progress because we have more hands in a classroom. When we look at our demographic for Black students, we do well. We're not quite there, but our numbers look very, very good. So the more we talk about we need teachers of color, they're coming out of this program. They're here and they're trained with a quality credential. So we know that the quality of our educators in the state is naturally going to climb. Every state needs educators. But what's important is that we put policies in place and we honor quality over quantity. It doesn't make sense to just put anybody into a classroom working with our littlest, most important, most moldable minds. It makes sense to train people with high quality measures like the CDA so that we're putting really good people in those classrooms. As a parent, I want the best teacher for my children. And every parent deserves to have the best educator possible working with their kids. That shouldn't be something for people that have more privilege than others. So I am really proud of our state for emphasizing quality over quantity. The other thing I'm really proud of, this is the end of our 5th year, and we don't have a complete data collection yet. But what I can tell you is in 2022, we produced 34 preschool CDAs. So good number, but it could be better. In 2023, we produced 43 preschool CDAs. Okay, it's improvement. But I knew this year we'd have pretty phenomenal numbers. And right now, our preliminary for our preschool CDA is 167. That's a whole nother month still of reporting where teachers may say, hey, we just had 2 more kids complete this, and we're going to submit that information to the state. So that is something I'm really proud of. The other piece that Robin had commented on is that we're putting our students into our registry system. We're doing that intentionally so that students and high school students, they got life. They got so much more things happening in their world than I did when I was a high school kid. So maybe they can't completely finish their CDA in high school. Well, what we want is we want everything that they earned staying with them. So every competency that they completed in their binders, every work-based learning hour that they had logged needs to move with them, either to the community college, or it needs to move with them to their place of employment so that when they're 19 or 20, they can look back and say, oh, wait a second, now life has settled down for me and I can do that. I had a student reach out to me. She just turned 30. She's pregnant with her 2nd child. And she said, do you think I could still be a teacher? And I just like, it gives me goosebumps to think about, because I didn't start teaching until I was a little bit older as well. I was divorced with 2 kids. And I think of what my degree meant to me in that moment of being divorced with 2 babies, that I had a job I could turn to. And I think of this girl and I think, girlfriend, you could have been teaching for the past 10 years, but okay, let's get you going now. We need to give more on and off ramps like that to students, so that it's not an absolute when you graduate. Oh, sorry, I know you gave us 300 hours, but guess what? You got to start over at your place of employment. That's not cool. And it just makes people feel defeated. So having that system in place, Robin talked about it, but that's such a game changer for people to be able to still keep going.
I love that you all prioritize quality over quantity. It's clear there is value in that. At that graduation rate that you shared for this year, that is amazing. And what an awesome story as well. How can other states leverage your experiences and successes in Michigan to promote and implement the CDA CTE program in their regions?
One thing that we intentionally focused on in our work was breaking down silos. In any given state, there are a half dozen to a dozen different agencies working on any given workforce development initiative. I work with fire instructors, and in Michigan, I have at least 3 different groups, well-intentioned, trying to address that workforce shortage. So I think it's really important to directly work with those groups and invite them to your table. Invite them to your table, say, we're going to tell you about our initiative. We want you to be a part of it. And then ask them to tell you about theirs. It's a lot of, mutual respect, talking and listening and talking and listening some more. But we also had that boots on the ground approach. We called it our roadshow. We just kept going to every conference we could go to so that people knew we existed, because that was a little bit of an issue. Immerse yourself in the people that are making decisions in your state. Who are the decision makers? How can they contribute to your work? Every CTE program has to have an advisory board. One thing I always work with my teachers on is how they can strengthen that advisory board. We have 132 programs in our state now. We started with 55 5 years ago. Now we have 132. Of those 132, our enrollment has increased, student enrollment, by over 1,000 in 5 years. So more programs, more students. I tell my teachers, is your local legislator on the board? If they're not on your advisory board, they don't know you exist. They're the people who determine your funding. They're the people who can make things happen for you. Do you do press releases to the local media so that your local media is aware that you exist? Do you have your students, don't bother doing it yourself, but do your students utilize social media? One of our buildings had a contest between CTE programs, that the CTE program in the building who had the most retweets, or maybe it wasn't a retweet because I don't think they use Twitter anymore. It must have been something on Instagram or Snapchat, but the most, reshares of whatever it was, the class won a pizza party. Pizza parties are still a motivator for kids. We also made sure that not just did we have our representatives from MyLeap and the Department of Ed at the table, but we started reaching out to other agencies, Labor and Economic Opportunity, our licensing and regulation agency. How can our students work on their CDA at 16 and 17 if licensing doesn't allow them to count into ratio? So we actually worked with our licensing to say, please let your 16 and 17-year-olds have paid placements, because that's great for the student, but also please let them count into licensing, or into your ratio for licensing, because that benefits the program. We have entire early childhood and out of school time programs in our state that would have shut down unless we allowed those 16 and 17-year-olds to be in supervised positions. They're not alone with students. But I'm going to tell you what, a 16 or 17-year-old CTE student is just as good, if not better, than a 19 or 20-year-old who's had no experience. I personally think our kids are better, but that's my bias showing. We did run into some issues with CTE administrators not necessarily understanding why we were utilizing the CDA. in our state and what it did. You know, how does the CDA help a student who wants to be a speech and language pathologist? Well, it does, because it teaches them all these different skills. It teaches them so much about child development and what's developmentally appropriate practice. So once we got our admin to buy in, which took some time, we knew we would just win at that point, that we would start to have great things happening. And then of course those on and off ramps. And then another thing that it doesn't happen in government a lot, so I'm willing to say that openly as the government person here. We don't always utilize flexibility and just good old common sense. You know, sometimes we overthink things when there could be a simple solution that's somewhat common sense that we can push forward. Another thing that we've done, and we will continue to do in this program, is we've targeted where we need to build programs. You know, we went to the Upper Peninsula and said, we think you need this. But now what we've noticed is we don't have enough males in our program. So how can we fix that? That's going to be the next 5-year plan. Teachers, get ready if you're watching. But again, too, don't be shy about being real. I think that's been something that people have appreciated. Robin does an outstanding job of talking about the registry to teachers and explaining why it's important. Some of our other folks on our team, we utilize their strengths too. I don't think ego is a thing in our project, but I think passion is. And so we've been passionate. And I am totally willing to step back and say, Robin, you got to take the lead on this one because you do a better job with it. I'm a little bit more the teeth. And that's a role I can do. So that's what I do. And I have no problem, you know, like spitting the truth, I'll say. And I think that people appreciate that. So, you know, we've tackled this from a variety of angles. I will say, for anyone that's wanting to do this, you got to get your admin on board right away. We learned that lesson pretty harshly at the beginning. We did not have the support of our administrators beginning this project, and it took some time. So we made a lot of assumptions, and just even reaching out to other states. I know I'm totally happy to have a conversation any day through email or through Zoom. I know Robin feels the same. We're happy to share and tell people where we struggled, because we did. This was not rainbows and sunshine. We knew we had a 5-year plan, and we hit the target of our 5-year plan. So we are happy. But at the end of year 2, during COVID, if you told me we'd be sitting here 5 years later and we'd have the number of CDAs that we have, I would have told you you're nuts, because there were days where we wanted to pull our hair out. So it's not easy. It takes an all hands on deck, boots on the ground approach.
This is so inspiring, Candace. 132 programs, that is incredible. The amount of growth you all have seen is a true testament to the program's need and importance. And I know you said that it's not always easy, but you know, now that we're here, it kind of feels like you all did what you really needed to do to get here. So really congratulations. Before we let you go, is there anything else you would like to share with our viewers?
Just what I kind of already said. I knew in my gut that this program works. I saw the teachers that came out of my classroom. I saw the teachers that came out of my friends' classrooms. I keep in touch with a lot of my former students, and I would tell any teacher to do that, because it makes you feel really good to see what they're doing in the classroom when they share. But now being able to have that data and evidence to support that in our guts, we knew this worked. It does work. Supporting students when they have the desire to work with kids, and teaching them that this is a rewarding career pathway, and showing it yourself. I'll tell anybody that I think this is a rewarding area to be in, and that the smaller the brain, the more important it is to have a high quality person working with that student. As a parent, as a female, I like seeing the reward of what students are doing in the classroom, how mature they are. And just kind of to echo Robin, what she had said is just that's the piece that's the most rewarding. So I'm glad we started on this adventure. And I almost got to go back to Dr. Bisa to say, like, she really inspired me to think differently, and to help some of my teachers think differently too. And I think that, that just keeps going. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for that, Candace. And thank you for taking time to speak with us today. We're so grateful for all you and Robin are doing for the program and hope to welcome you both back to CounciLIVE again soon.
Well, thank you so much. It was great to be here.
To close, I'd like to welcome back Sandy. As listeners begin to plan the implementation of the CDA CTE program in their school or state, what council resources or other partnerships are available to help support the process?
Thanks, Kate. But wow, what amazing things Michigan is doing with this program. And thank you so much to Candace and Robin for speaking today on CounciLIVE. And that said, following up on something Robin mentioned earlier, we do have a lot of resources that are wonderful. They are in our council website under high school pathways. And I think you'll be putting that link in the chat very soon. And within that site, I want to highlight our CDA handbook for high school. It's called the Handbook for High School, A Guide to Advocacy and Implementation. We launched it in April 2021. And it's been a great success. It includes planning and design tools, resources, and individualized instruction to create a sustainable high school CTE program. And it provides a systems approach with specific resources. It includes workbooks, templates, and a guide to instructional planning and support to individualized lesson plans. And that said, it's digitally formatted and it's free. It's one of the council's only free items. So it's a fabulous book and I encourage everybody to go in there and download it. In addition to the wonderful resources offered in the handbook, in May 2022, the council launched a CDA CTE training and technical assistance initiative. And this helps support state administrators, school district leaders, faculty, and staff in implementing the high school CTE program. And with that, it's a 30-minute coaching appointment. And to do that, you'd go into our website, into the pathways section, and fill out a form. And then that comes to us. And then I would reach out to you and set up a 30-minute appointment. If that doesn't work for you, or if you need other assistance, you can also reach out directly to me at our website, our partnerships website, which is partnerships@cdacouncil.org. And lastly, I wanted to bring up some webinars. We have some wonderful webinars that talk about a lot of the high school initiatives on the curriculum, on the portfolio, and it's all on YouTube. And Kate's going to put our YouTube link in the chat, so you can look at that as well. So feel free to peruse those videos. And with that said, so happy to be here today and to be part of CounciLIVE. And again, any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Back to you, Kate.
Thanks for sharing those resources, Sandy. I know that they will be so helpful for our viewers, especially following that dynamic conversation from Michigan. I have a feeling some people will want to start implementing this program in their state. So I appreciate you sending those over. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close our CounciLIVE today?
No, I just thank you for organizing this. And there's been so many resources offered today within the CounciLIVE presentation that I'll just say, if anyone's interested, states, students, teachers, again, feel free to reach out to us.
Thanks, Sandy. And thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you on the next episode of CounciLIVE.